Okay. It's August 13th, 9 AM. Come to order for the Safety Committee Security Meeting. And first, pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As for attendance go, myself, Anthony Caggiano, with Ms. Milbury Ellis and Mr. John Kingston. Also, we have here is Mayor Keefe, Chief Levita, and Loretta.
Sergeant Turner.
Joe Turner. And also from the fire department, we got Lieutenant Leary. And, yes, okay. And we have also here Council Anthony Pagliaccio. And we have one of our SROs, Brian. We're gonna conduct the meeting at the beginning is we're gonna have guideposts do their presentation. Presentation each PowerPoint, the committee will be able to ask questions. Once they're done with their PowerPoint presentation, the public can ask any questions they may need. Anything that goes on with the individual schools, we're gonna be going for an executive session afterwards. So if we're looking or asking questions about individual schools, that will be done in executive session. Any questions? You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. So great to be here, everybody. My name is John Dolina. I'm a senior managing director at Guidepost Solutions. I'm a kid, born and raised, which is really why I'm so proud of this project. My career was spent with the United States government. I spent 30 years with the Drug Enforcement Administration. I was in law enforcement for a couple of years before that. And I've been with Guidepost for a little over a year now. This opportunity to do work in what is my home, Revere. I attended the Beach One School, as I told everybody here, probably too much than they wanted to hear. I was part of the first class that was walked into the Beach One School. So I take a lot of pride in the schools here and the work that's being done. And before my partner introduces himself, I'll just say that, this whole project has been a great opportunity. We met with some tremendous people. We should be very proud of the people, that are in these schools. They really did welcome us with open arms, answered all of our questions. And I think we did a very thorough job based on what you asked us to do. We're going to get into a lot of that today. It's a lot to digest. You got a big report in front of you. I don't expect, you to be able to go through everything, but we'll work with you and get everything answered that we can. And now I'll pass it off to my partner.
Oh, thank you. Michael Beerstone, senior consultant with Guidepost. My background also is military and working with different government agencies, domestic and abroad. I also want to say thank you for the partnership and participation that we received. The hospitality while we carried this out was extremely helpful. I know that Richie was with us during our site visits and all of our interviews, but everybody's willingness to sit down and speak with us and answer our questions and show us things to demonstrate responses to some of our questions was extremely helpful in what we were attempting to do. So really do appreciate it. I'll probably first start off by just making sure that we make clear here, in case there was any misunderstanding or thoughts to the contrary, that we did not perform an audit. We were not auditing any of the school's safety and security measures, processes, programs, resources, or tools. Any checklist, okay? Nor did we test. We weren't testing how a video feed was coming across and so much as how it was being received under inclement weather or at night, or whether it was being received at all, the integrity of the infrastructure. What we did do was review very holistically all of those things. So we did touch on them, we did look to observe them, and we did ask questions regarding them and asked for, where available, documentation or evidence to support what it was that we were looking to try to understand and learn. You can go ahead. Okay, thank you.
Before we start, I just like, I got a text, Stacy Rizzo was also watching this, so this, she's here.
So we've broken the PowerPoint, this brief, it's a high-level brief, and down into a number of key sections. And what we're doing here is we're just letting you know what the order of those sections are. We'll get into the meat of things as we move along. Mind you, again, as Anthony mentioned, while we're discussing and presenting the information that you're also going to be seeing on the slides, at the end of each slide, or for that matter, if anything comes to mind, you wish to ask a question, by all means, just ask us. We'll respond as best we can. Go ahead, Dan. Yes. So this is a slide that Guidepost likes to make sure that we present to everybody. We do this during the initiation of any of our engagements. We do this during presentations, and we speak to it in any of our work products. What it is inferring is that we hold ourselves to a very high level, a high standard. And we come into these type of projects without any preconceived notions. We have no positions one way or another about how anybody is doing something or not doing something. And we go about it that way only so much as to make sure that the product at the end is at face value, factual in its presentation, that there's no embellishment or changes or alteration.
We also, Michael, if I may, we also don't sell any product. We don't rep any specific company. If we're talking about cameras, we don't have a dog in the fight. We're not gonna tell you, which camera is better than another. We're not trying to sell an app or anything else. That's not our job.
Yes, thank you. You go ahead. So this slide is demonstrating at a very high level the different layers of protection, safety and security that we worked to look into. The image you see there is an image that is found and often used by the Partnership Alliance for Safety and Security, who recently just came out with an updated guide with respect to security at a school, at a K-12 school. And these 5 layers of security have been identified within industry by DHS and others, and are commonly looked at in such a way as to provide a roadmap when one is going about to look at, develop for, or adjust various safety and security processes. And that's what we did here. And you'll note the very first bullet there, district-wide. That was where we first started. We first started with of course, understanding the district, understanding Revere Public Schools, how it is made up, where it sits, how it supports or looks to support its staff and faculty and its principals and others alike. You can go ahead. Next one. This slide is a little bit more detailed as to where it was that we actually looked, and this is how our product was also generated in so much as the information that we presented, the report. We looked into physical security equipment and technology. We looked into school security personnel. When we say security personnel, that of course also includes, that includes whether it's a third-party security service, whether it's a direct hire security operation, or whether it's school resource officers, law enforcement. We looked at policies and procedures. We looked at policies and procedures from the district, and we looked at policies and procedures as they may exist at each individual school. We looked at the site, the building, the property, and its design. When we looked at the schools and all of them, we looked at where they sat, the elevation of the property, local landscape, physical perimeter control. We looked at driveways, roadway systems. We looked at angles of the school building exterior itself. We looked for concealable spaces and things like that. And we just give an example or some examples. Emergency management. We looked at emergency management from a planning, preparedness, response, recovery, and management process with respect first from the district level and then down to each individual school. So we were looking at emergency operations plans. We were looking at, as the next bullet indicates, training processes, exercises, drills, and so forth. The 2 key things to keep cognizant of here with respect to this particular slide are the last 2 bullets. today's K through 12 threat environment and national strategies. The threat environment is dynamic and evolving. And incidents today, of course, are abhorrent and they're devastating, and it's not something anybody ever wishes to have to deal with. And as a result of the current K through 12 threat environment, there is a plethora of standards, guidelines, recommendations, best practices, and lessons learned coming from the industry itself, which also includes the federal government. One of the things that we made sure that we did while we were going through this safety and security review was to maintain our cognizance of the threat environment, but also to the daunting amount of information that's out there regarding best practices and guidelines and lessons learned. So you can go to the next slide, please. Next one. So I mentioned at the beginning that we did not audit or test. What this slide is speaking to is exactly what we did do though, which is that we explored the awareness of in-place safety and security by all participants, all staff members and administrators within RPS. We reviewed internal partnerships and in-place approaches with respect to how all of those individuals communicate with one another, how they support one another, how they work together in planning and preparing for whether it's to develop a new policy or whether it's to assess an existing policy or if it's to plan for an unfortunate or possible event. We reflected on a number of different data sources and other, we did a lot of open source research. We did a lot of review of RPS documentation that was provided to us. We actually had provided a menu of items, which probably at first glance was like, wow, that's a lot. But we provided that information and spent a good deal of time reviewing it. And when we did review it, it wasn't just based, any interpretation of that wasn't just based on an individual reader. We actually discussed it. We mulled over and we followed up with questions back to RPS to make sure that what we were believing we were reading and understanding was in fact correct the way it's being presented. Of all the other bullets there, the second to the last one, wanted to make sure that we were encompassing the spirit and intent of national strategies based on, but not limited to, lessons learned from school incidents and other experiences. So we did not come at this taking into consideration and taking a look at functions and operations in the schools like they were in embassy, or with the mayor being present like it was City Hall. We looked at them as schools. We looked at them with respect to school incidents and the dynamic and ever-evolving threat environment as it exists. Doesn't mean that things still can't happen that would perhaps be atypical or asymmetrical, but we did what we could to make sure that we stayed on target. Next slide, please. So this is the meat of the presentation. Pretty much what everybody here is most interested in. So the way that this is going to, we're going to present this is that this first slide talks about the district, which is on the whole, how we looked, what we found with respect to the district. Then with the next slides that follow on, we'll get more particular, but they will regard the schools on the whole. So the first one here, we want to make sure, and we've acknowledged this already, but just to say it again, we were never not faced with the expression by all the administrators and teachers and the participants as to how important safety and security is to them. Which was obviously, as I mentioned, demonstrated by their openness and their participation and wanting to be able to even ask us if we were interested in looking at other things, or seeing something else that perhaps we hadn't asked about. We will say that the district has some good security features and technologies. We caveat that though by noting that while there are some good features and technologies, they're not well integrated. And at times they're not consistently used, and also too, perhaps managed according to any set policies or procedure. These are easy fixes though. At least the consistently being used and the set following policies or procedures. The integration bit may take a slight bit of work, and you'll understand that more as we move along with the fall. Right now, there does not yet exist a district-wide security plan. Now, what we will say is that there are security provisions and requirements that do exist, and they are found in RPS documents. What we are talking about here is a single specific district-wide security plan. That would take that information that may exist in other resources and repeat it in this single plan, but then the plan would also be further fleshed out and include additional information, processes, and procedures. And then that plan would be, for lack of a better description, the Bible to which the rest of this, all the other schools would in fact operate respective security. The schools do have emergency operations plans, but right now those plans do not align with what is referred to as a high quality emergency operations plan. So while those plans are effective in how they're being used, they have worked, we are not aware of, nor have we learned that they haven't worked. What we have identified is that there is a guideline and template that's been out there by schoolsafety.gov, and it's been recognized by the industry and developed by the White House and 6 or 7 different federal agencies. In fact, titled High Quality Emergency Operation Plans for School. The thing about that plan, which is different, I shouldn't say the thing, pardon me, the provisions of that plan that are different than what exists right now within RPS is that it is very formalized and structured and starts out with what is considered basic plan provisions. Then it goes into what are called these essential security features, support features. The basic plan talks about what the plan is, how it's developed, how it's reviewed, how it's updated, how it's trained against, who's responsible for it. The essential support features talk about, here's what we are doing with respect to how we are making sure that we have identified how to obtain the resources we need when we need them, meaning during an event. Here are the responsible personnel for an emergency at the district level. Here are the responsible personnel for an emergency at this school, at that school. It provides a template from the district's perspective to issue and provide the schools to complete for themselves, thereby ensuring a consistent development of the emergency operations plan and a consistent out of the gate approach to responding to emergencies. The other thing about this plan is that it talks about training, how often that training is conducted, the type of training that's conducted, how the plan is tested. And then, of course, we're all familiar with after action reports, how those tests and training events occurred, what was learned, what was good, what do we need to work on, and then seeing that that happens. Updating and maybe developing something anew. That's what the high quality emergency operation plan at a very high level speaks, what it speaks to and what it presents. And we did provide information to be able to go to this particular guidance document, so you can actually, RPS can see it and use it as a template as they continue to move forward with developing their own high quality EOP for the district and then for each of their individual schools. We did note that there are drills that occur, enhanced drills, which is a drill that is coordinated with Revere, PD and others with respect to how to respond to particular type of incidents, including active threat incidents. We understand that we have come to learn that that happens pretty frequently. It actually happens a number of times a year, which in effect ensures that each school is being subjected to or participating in, I should say, an enhanced drill every other year, which is a positive. That's good. We do understand that RPS has a bullying program, a pretty robust bullying reporting program, which also addresses harassment and discrimination. What we identified that was not in place, that RPS has indicated that already to us that they are working to develop such a program, is a bystander reporting program. A bystander reporting program is a new term, is a recently new term that is being used, that is being promoted within the industry and by the government, and not just for schools, but also for communities that police departments are also supporting as well too. A bystander reporting program is more robust. It offers multiple venues of how to report an issue or a concern. Examples would be online, a text, anonymous, phone, a form, whatever the case might be, but it's every type of communication method that you might have available to you that you can incorporate in such a way that you can receive things that are coming in. Those are the different reporting mechanisms that are being used. It is not just about bullying, it is not just about harassment. It is also about reporting concerning behaviors. It is about reporting concerning observations. I was in class sitting next to John, and for the last couple of weeks, I see that he keeps drawing guns on this piece of paper. Or, I'm pretty familiar with how John is at school, and, he's changing his dress. He's starting to look more goth, he's starting to become more secluded, he's not eating. Those type of things are what are included in the bystander reporting program that would be able to be reported to, which then goes to the next bullet, reported to within what is referred to as Behavioral Threat Assessment and Management Program, or BTAM. A BTAM is a comprehensive program that takes those reports, takes issues of incidents, takes concerns, and then evaluates that. Not for punitive reasons, but for to restore, to support, to fix, if you will, or to help. At the same time, a BTAM is a program that continues to move all the way forward in a step-by-step process to where it doesn't always just end after an issue has been brought to the BTAM program. It may be monitored, the individual may be, the situation may be monitored. And there is a process to that. Someone's responsible for monitoring. Someone's responsible for presenting what was being found during the monitoring back to the rest of the team. And that team is the TAP. It's the next bullet, the threat assessment team. It's a multidisciplinary team they are the specific members who operate within the BTAM. They're the ones responsible for performing the different BTAM processes. They're also the ones responsible for always staying on top of the school climate and culture, in so much as looking ahead and seeing what other policies might we look to try to develop. What other support programs can we try to initiate and stand up? What maybe have other districts done if they've had this type of an issue or problem before? And that's what the TAD is. So I'll wrap this slide up by saying that on the last slide, the district has a number of resources and programs that are already in place to support a positive school culture, to support a safe and secure environment. So we, at the district level, we found that we heard that there was an interest and a dedicated position on safety and security, and then we saw evidence of it. Any questions?
I'll just jump in, and Michael, maybe just the last point on that, the BTAM and the TAD are national standards, right? It's what we're seeing now industry-wide.
Yes, I'm sorry, that's correct. So BTAMs and TATs are, the last stat I received that I heard was approaching 70% of schools and school districts are now standing up BTAMs.
And if I can just add, just in the conversation that we've had over the last several weeks, we have a lot of these pieces in place. I'm gonna go back to the comment that Mike made earlier. It's the structure around them and writing down, this is how they're related. Like Anthony, we had talked about the bi-weekly SRO meetings that we have and how we bring issues to the SROs when we're aware of a student who's approaching some kind of crisis that they can monitor in the community. They bring information to us when they're seeing something in the community so that we can provide resources in the school. But it's writing that all down and umbrellaing all of that so that there's an organizational structure around it. And when we encounter a student like that, instead of us just having a conversation at the bi-weekly SRO meeting and maybe Richie or I take it back to the school social worker and the principal so that they can work on it, we have that written down. So there's an actual policy and procedure that we're following. And whether that involves involving the student in a restorative practices circle or getting them additional work on the regular with a social worker, or even providing outside resources through North Suffolk or whatever we need to do to try to really build supports around that student before they hit a crisis point. And even though we're doing these things in different little venues, writing it down and organizing it all will make us all implement it better. Is that a good summary?
Yes, yeah, that's perfect, thank you. So yes, we did discuss that, and we did discuss, as Diane mentioned, just to confirm, is that the number of resources, programs, and tools that you have in place are a lot, and they're great. What we posited and it was agreed to is that assimilate that, have some sort of overarching assimilation of these things. Have somebody, one or two, when I say somebody, when we say somebody, it could be a team of two or whatever, actually manage and stay on top of it. Take advantage of these programs and the successes that these programs are demonstrating and presenting to you. Use data to show how well they're working, which data that I'm sure perhaps the mayor might be interested in seeing at times. And you know, your constituents would be interested in seeing. Here are the programs, we have this under one umbrella, it's being managed, we're tracking it, and here's the results. Which also allows you the ability to make changes, to enhance whatever that program is to get yet better results. I also don't want to forget the bystander reporting program isn't about somebody reporting for somebody else. It's also about the individual themselves. So having trust in the school and having trust in the system allows me to be able to perhaps use that reporting program just to say that I could use some help. Maybe I'm not so comfortable that I can approach a teacher or another faculty or administrative member. And maybe I would use this to be able to present, or at least know where to go. So.
One thing I wanted to ask was, I know about the enhanced drills. For example, for myself, I was with John at the time at the Garfield, someone called in, there was an active shooter. And the kids filed in line and off they went. Everything was done perfectly. But the funny part is there's me and John going, where do we go? So the point is do we have any type of training, or is there anything trained? Maybe the police can help. So if there's an active shooter in the building, don't know what to do. For example, if they're coming through the door.
The visitors know what to do.
Right. So do we have anything like that in place, or is there any type of training, or the police can assist?
Well,
Whether it be for administration, even students and stuff.
So first, you know, maybe the superintendent can answer, you know, I want to see where you guys are at with that, and then I'll defer to the chief and to the PD on that, and then we can come in last on that answer and talk about what trainings are out there, you know, industry wide.
Does the police have any type of training when it comes to an active shooter inside the school? I mean, maybe for administration.
So we do train all administrators, all staff, teachers, other staff, students, we all get trained, but I think you're hitting on a good point, Anthony. We don't have anything for a visitor, whether it's you guys or a parent who's here to pick
Well, yeah,
up a child.
But actually, if they're coming through the door.
Yeah.
You know, so what is the teacher, I mean, everybody files in great, everything is done to perfection.
Yeah.
But when it gets to a bit more of an extreme point.
Yeah.
What do they do? Do the kids know what to do? Do the teachers know what to do?
So one of the aspects that's universal in any type of command, like in your case, this would be a lockdown. When we get the class, or whoever gets the class teacher, they are supposed to do a quick check and encumber anybody that might be a visitor
Okay.
or not know what's going on, or a student that's going to the bathroom. If I'm a teacher and my classroom is right next to the bathroom, I take a peek just before I shut and lock my door. So that encumber point is supposed to gather everyone that might be, not familiar with our command.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Like, just understand, so. The national standard for there's various programs that schools can use, and I think from Alice, the trace and all that stuff from Alert. Any of these programs, one of the big things is that knowledge of the event, like knowledge of the event, location of the issue and things like that. And it's basically like Alert, it's one of their very first parts of the acronym is alert people, like let them know. I mean, not for Alice, it's alert and notify everybody what's going on and where it is. At that point, it becomes a self-survival moment. You know where the issue is, what the issue is, and you need to take, precautions and steps to avoid that problem and get away from that problem. The schools, if there was an actual event like that, they're gonna be broadcasting that out and saying, we have something here at this location. And the teachers would go into their training, they'll follow their training protocols, being knowledgeable of that. You as somebody that's an outsider of the building, you're just gonna react with that knowledge. Now, in regards to you being a part of the city, being a staff of the city and you work with the city, there are programs there, while we have school active threat response programs, there are civilian active threat response programs that are out there. Some civilians take them on their own, and some cities do. That is something that the city could do in the future. They could do training for all city employees on what to do in an active threat event. So there's various depths of that training they can do. So again, one of the big steps is alerting everybody, saying, hey, this is where it is, what it is, then you have to take the steps accordingly.
But again, if I can jump in, impossible to train every parent that might be here to pick up if a child is sick. But imperative that as we are doing, getting staff properly trained to kind of take that leadership role in helping out to evacuate or whatever, react to the circumstances properly. So,
Your issue actually brought up is something that's, it's a common issue that's discussed, as hospitals is the big one. Hospitals had a big issue with knowledge of all public parties inside of what was going on. They used to use codes, color codes. That's now staunchly advocated against using a color code. So that, like, one place used code silver or whatever, saying there was a person armed in the building. Well, when I'm going to visit my mom who's sick, no, I don't know what that is. So now that they use more, we call plain speak is more advised. So it is a national thing, but we can't put a big sign on every single door that says, if there's an active shooter in the school, you should do this.
No, I know.
Wouldn't go.
Well, it's just like when you see a situation, do you gonna run away from it, or do you run towards it, or, you know what I'm saying, so.
Anthony, the last thing I'll say on that, sort of stepping back at a much higher level. And I'm sure the chief and PD and the fire department will agree, training is just paramount, right? There's nothing more important than training. And there was an incident recently, at Florida State University, active shooter. And, the thing that really stuck with me, watching what happened as a result of that, they were interviewing several administrators, teachers, and even kids. And one thing they said is, everybody sort of did what they had to do because they've all been trained so much. Some of those kids had actually been in school shootings. Some of them had been in Parkland during Stone and Douglas, and we'll talk a little bit more when we get into the next session about that, but they knew what to do. So training is important. And you were just somebody that wasn't part of the training, right? But as you referenced in the Alice training, people sort of go into that mode, that's why we train for those incidents.
And I'll probably wrap it up by saying that we talked about emergency operation plans and training. What we're also gonna be talking about here is visitor management. So unlike a hospital, people just can't walk into a school and start to mill about. They should be attended to and escorted by a staff member who should be trained and well-versed on how to respond should there be some sort of an incident or a notification is sent out. We talk about communications as well too. So within a school environment, at least these days, nobody should be walking around your school unless they get escorted or they're in fact an employee, a staff member. If they're being escorted, that staff member, who when meets them, can just easily say, look, should anything happen, follow my lead, stay with me, and just be given direct commands. So if you're a visitor coming wherever you are, as soon as you get inside the doors and are met by the staff member who's escorting you, you should be able to respond by way of guidance and instruction by whomever you're escorting. Go ahead. So now we're going to talk about the schools on the whole. So you have 11 schools at 8 locations. A couple of your schools actually occupy the same building. They're just, of course, separated by way of grade level and other type of things as well. The first topic that we're going to speak to is security equipment and technology. In particular, access control and alarm monitoring. All of your schools are equipped with proximity readers. Does everyone here know what a proximity reader is? It's just a device where you're holding a fob or a card up to it. You're not swiping, you're not inserting, you're not entering a pin code. These readers are in fact located in all of your operationally defined doors. We differentiate an operational door from an emergency door. Operational doors, that's the door that you come in and out of on a regular basis for regular operational purposes. And emergency doors should only be used when exiting under the conditions of an emergency. I tell you that, going to the next part of the sentence, door contacts for monitoring the status of exterior doors, emergency and operational, are also in existence. A door contact, it's like a husband-wife design that is tied into an electronic system that tells you when that door is open, when it's been pushed open, pulled open, or when it's been held open. Your schools have those door contacts in place. Those, and you also have video intercom devices near some of your key operational doors. Those video intercom devices, I as a visitor walk up to the main entrance. I hit the button, it's buzzing into the school, actually going to a desk that's staffed by one of your security personnel, who has a monitor in front of them, or the camera on the video intercom is now showing my handsome mug. The operational doors are physically staffed by school staff members, school security team, when the doors are being used during arrival and departure. That's a key note here, because not all of your staff have a fob or a prox card that allows them to access into the school by way of an access control device. Access control is managed pretty tightly. So when, particularly during high traffic times like arrivals and departures, students coming and going, teachers coming and going, your staff member and security team actually stand at those doors to make sure that those folks coming in are those folks who are supposed to be coming in. Anybody else is held up and moved to the side, and where different communication and coordination occurs. That's a positive. The majority of the schools do not, however, have panic or duress alarm devices in place. When we talk about panic and duress alarm devices, to make it easy, the easiest way to understand, it's like a bank alarm button you see in movies that bank tellers hit when they're being robbed. It's the same type of thing. We're talking about static panic or duress devices at key locations within the schools.
What would be a key location?
The principal's office, the assistant principal's office, the guidance counselor's office, the nurse's office. We do identify what some of those key locations might be as well too. Now, let me make clear, not all schools don't have panic duress devices. There were a couple of schools that in fact do have a couple of panic and duress devices.
We'll get into that in the other session.
And that's a good thing. We did speak to that. We drew attention to it. We did note that perhaps maybe there may be additional devices that might be considered to be installed. The next thing is that we talk about the emergency exit doors are locked to control external access and are often equipped with internal local audible alarm devices. So what are we talking about there? The doors are locked from the outside by a key, a manual lock and key. Okay, there's no access control devices on them. The internal audible alarm is, you hear it, your fire alarm at home is an audible alarm. It's devices that are set up right at the emergency exit door that if it's opened, that's going to alarm. It's a local audible alarm. So of course, one needs to consider where is that door in relation to where is everybody else when that alarm goes off. So those are some of the things that we looked at. The thing too is that the internal local alarm system and devices are silenced during the day. You have a third monitoring service company that is monitoring those contacts we spoke about at all of your doors after hours. When the school is actually operating that service, the alarm panel silences the alarms. Now your doors don't have those being read by the monitoring company. The other thing that we found of interest too is that, and we put it in quotes here, request to exit devices, also known as REX devices, were found at operational and emergency exit doors, including at doors that have push bars. So a REX device is, when you're at an airport and you're walking through some sort of a glass door and it just automatically opens for you, that's because a device read you approaching it. Same thing at hospitals. We found REX devices at your operational and emergency exit doors. What those things do is unlock the door. They unlock the door and they also can sometimes silence the alarm. So we just wanted to make sure that we drew that to your attention. Even still, some of the emergency doors, not only did they have a REX device, they also had the emergency push bar to get out with. So there is perhaps some This is just an example of one particular design scenario that we came across that might be looked at and altered, changed. Now, are there any questions about any of this on this slide?
Quick question, I don't know if I heard you correctly, did you say it was a third party who deactivates the internal
No,
codes during the school?
no, it's
hours?
an alarm panel, it's an alarm system here at the school that RPS personnel have codes for. When they arrive, they turn the alarm system off, they silence it.
Okay.
When they depart at night, they activate it. It's at night when it's activated that the third-party monitoring service sees it's been activated, and now they monitor for alarms.
And some of that, I'm sorry, to jump, some of that, you know, again, maybe a little further discussion in the next session, so it's not put out.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Aren't fobs better than keys? At least the fob, you can track who came in and who came out.
The system, if it's designed in that way, can track who came in and came out.
Because I find
The
keys
fob-
problematic, because people can make keys, even if the keys that say you can't reproduce, someone can.
Fobs and keys are almost very similar in the management and control of them. Fobs are more expensive than a hard key. And depending on the prox reader as well too, it depends on, the fob is only as good as the reader as well, in so much as if it's a dual authenticating reader, meaning it might present and it reads back versus just reading me. Because if it's just reading the fob or reading the prox card, those are easily cloned.
The way we gotta look at it with keys versus fobs, keys is a fine motor skill under stress. We like fobs, because fobs are quick, and dummy-proof under stress. You want difficulty getting that key in there, because.
I just know what the credit union, if I fob into, say, the vault room, it's telling me, you know, John Kingston went in at 9:02 into the vault room, where if it's just a key. Yeah, there's cameras and stuff, they can go backtrack, but it's more of a, you know, there's more of a log created.
So a bank's system is going to be extremely sophisticated in that regard. And I would also suspect too that you have cameras that are watching you come and go in that room as well too. It's capturing images.
I'm just thinking after hours, cleaning crew or something like that, you know, I don't know how many keys are out there, and I don't know that we know how many keys are actually out there, and like I said, keys can easily be, you know, keys can easily be duplicated. Even keys that say don't duplicate, I've seen people have them duplicated.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. So still under security equipment and technology, video surveillance. All schools do have video surveillance cameras installed. We noted though that the video surveillance systems do not also include edge-based analytics or artificial intelligence. What that is the camera has software and the ability to detect movement, direction of travel, color, display of a weapon, congregating of people, somebody falling down, all those different type of things. So it's not atypical for schools not to have that yet, but it is becoming far more typical for schools to research and invest and incorporate edge-based analytics, artificial intelligence.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna jump in again. I need to jump on this because he's hitting an unbelievable point. That technology, the casino has that technology.
Mhm.
A person can have the weapon, the firearm in their waistband with a shirt covering it. Program and pick it up, and it does a very good job, and it immediately alerts to those that have like the access, the phone, whatever, it sends out an alert immediately as soon as they pass the scanner. And the officers are immediately able to get that person. I know several officers I work with regionally who work at the casino, and it's an unbelievable tool. So I just want to make sure I jump on that to the parties in this room right now, that technology, it's expensive, but it's unbelievable.
Yeah, so great. And as you're looking, you know, to build a new school and for the future, these are things you definitely should be thinking of. It also, you know, will alert to a crowd that's a fight. And then the cameras will stay with that, whoever's running, it'll follow those people away. That's how we see on TV, there was a fight at a sports venue or something, they zoom right in, they know exactly what's going on. It's not somebody with a mouse doing the work. You know, the camera's doing the work for you, so there's a lot of potential there, and it's something as you move forward.
And what PD currently runs, sorry to interrupt,
No, we've already been engaging with a few companies, Motorola Technologies, stuff like that.
similar to what Fenway Park uses to, again, it's
Oh, yeah.
funding sources are always, in the value, but of course, how you value the school family, so.
Some of the softwares you can use like.
Yeah, we've been engaging, yeah. It's probably. It's probably not F1, so that's sort of what we're gonna do.
Anything else here, Rob?
I can finish the slide.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, so, one of the things that the video surveillance systems, are not actively monitored. So, unfortunately, what you're left with right here right now is that, the video surveillance is a great tool, but you are mostly able to use it for forensic purposes. Meaning that you can use it to go back and see what happened and when and who may have been involved. They can be actively monitored, but frankly, right now, you don't have the infrastructure means to be able to do so. That is not a negative, that is just a fact, so much as to be able to actively monitor this thing. Now, I will also caveat this as well too, to say that we did find a couple of schools where possible have begun to use their security personnel to watch and monitor some of the cameras. And we do know that Revere PD has a space where they also have the ability to also look at some of the video feeds as well too.
I was just gonna make that one clarification is that we do have security staff who actively monitor the cameras at our larger buildings. But it's not consistent and uniform. Anything else?
Just to let you know real quick, I'll paraphrase. So we found a number of different type of camera devices. So we wanted to make sure that we brought that to your attention as well too. We found a number of different type of camera devices. We also found a number of cameras that were inoperable and difficult to maintain. And the last point just speaks to how not every school has 360-degree coverage of their exterior, which is usually something that we try to strive for in recent times.
Go ahead, Dan. And Bob, no,
I don't think the superintendent, the system had a problem years ago. And the monitors, the cameras were actually useless. They couldn't identify what took place. They couldn't have any part of it. Has the systems been upgraded at least somewhat current that they're usable?
So we do have a number of cameras that we have been replacing over recent years, and the school committee did approve in their budget a significant amount this year to continue to replace cameras that haven't been working. One of the pieces, and the chief can maybe speak to this a little bit, but we had done a grant with in collaboration with the police department a few years back, and were required to purchase a particular kind of camera that turned out not to be a very sustainable camera, I'll say. Is that the polite way to put it?
Is the JAG grant and the restriction was significant in regards to where we could buy it from, and that was all kinds of speed bumps.
And so those are the cameras that have been failing over the last couple of years, but thankfully, the committee did, in the budgeting process, include several $100s to start working on the replacement of those cameras, and I believe we are pursuing another grant with the police department to help with that as well. And I don't know if I'm going.
Yeah, I think you went ahead.
Yeah, I think I was trying to go back and it was just going forward, but.
Intrusion detection,
Is that
is
right?
slide 15. There it is, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
Safe.
Thank you.
Okay, so here we're still on the security equipment and technology. I believe this is the last slide that we talked about security equipment and technology. So it's just repeating that all schools do have door contact devices that are in place and being monitored. We also know here, though, that all schools also have motion detection devices inside their schools at strategic locations as well, too. One of the things that we identified, which speaks to the systems on the whole, is that we found that they weren't integrated. What we mean by integrated, we kind of spoke about it before, John, we were talking about a banking system, is that the readers are not integrated with the CCTV system and the IDS system in so much as if one is sitting at a monitor or watching this system, when something happens, all of it goes up. The camera comes up, pulls up an image of the location, the alarm comes up, shows you where it's happening. That an integrated system with a single platform provides for greater management and control, less costs, and greater efficiency in operations and dispatching and response. So we only noted that they're not integrated right now, but the superintendent and others have indicated that this is something that they're also, that they've begun to look at as well too, is how to integrate. And where to leap off from, which goes back to your question, sir, about have we started to look at new cameras? The answer is yes. They have one school that does in fact have a very current system, which has a lot of capability to it, where we have talked to look at it as perhaps a launching point towards assimilating all other schools and getting onto an integrated plan.
Yep, thank you.
We already talked about monitoring, the classroom features. All doors are manually key locked and unlocked. I know that the sergeant spoke earlier about how, using keys can be cumbersome and cause issues and they break. That's absolutely true. We don't disagree with that at all. There is debate within industry whether to continue to use manual key locks or electronic locking systems on classroom doors. We did not, make mention or look to promote the consideration of making all classroom doors controlled with an access control system, electronic locks. There's pros and cons to that. We can discuss that later. What we do talk about though is that all the classrooms have a single motion manual flip lock that they use, which by the way follows Commonwealth guidelines. They also, some schools have emergency kits. We do talk about having more robust emergency kits. And also too, the schools do have laminated placards with respect to emergency action terms and what procedures to take. And also assembly areas. That information is also found in the back of RPS staff ID cards, which is great. We do note that. We do speak later on with regards to actual emergency action guides or flip books, which is more robust. Includes the same type of information and then some, and also directly coincides with provisions of an EOP and supports ongoing training and awareness. But we'll talk about that when we go as well too.
And I'll just add, that's something that we used to have years ago when I was teaching. And it wasn't something that you grabbed in the heat of a moment when something was going on. But it was something that you'd have on your desk and you'd occasionally look at it and it would just remind you of, we talked about the ongoing training and ongoing exercises that we do, but just having it there every now and then you'd be like, what do I do then? And you'd flip to that page and it could refresh.
Is that similar to, and I know that you mentioned hospitals have changed the color coding system, but you go into some of those larger buildings, I've worked with some larger facilities where you would have the red, the green, all the different color codes. And have the details per call out.
The tabs.
Yeah.
The tabs will be differently colored, yes, sir, for easy grasping, but not necessarily. It could be attributed to red tab, like for fire, active threat, blue to, storm or whatever the case might be. But obviously they would need to be visually distinct in such a way that I could easily see what I need to go to and move to it. We'll go from there. Go ahead, Dan. We talked about this in our description of other observations and findings. The district has security. The district also has SR. And there's a great relationship there. The district is reviewing its current security staffing models in respect to the roles and responsibilities that they are looking for from them. To make sure that they are meeting what their own desires or expectations are. So that is something that's ongoing. School maintenance will at times perform security functions on behalf of RPS. And that is primarily found during after-school activity events. So during the day, each school has an RPS security person or more on site at each school. There are SROs that have an MOA, obviously RPD has an MOA with RPS, which aligns with the Commonwealth's model guideline document, not that it has to, but it does. The SROs move about all of the schools on a very regular basis. And they actually do maintain a pretty steady, if not constant basis at a couple of key schools, so they. I don't wanna take away from what you know far more than what you guys do, but point of the matter is they're extremely visible. They move around, they make constant contact, and they also maintain their presence as best as they can, given their numbers. Not to be received as a good, bad, or different observation, no. So there are security personnel and there are very clearly defined security functions that are happening within each of the schools at all 8 locations. Security policies and procedures. We talked earlier about an overarching single security plan, so. RPS does require that all staff members wear their ID on their person when they are on property. And we found that everybody understands that, but at times there may not have been 100% compliance with that. So that's just something to be looked at, which would be better supported with regards to a provision inside of a security plan that is actively being monitored and enforced, for lack of a better description.
But I just wanna highlight, that's adults that we're talking about.
Correct.
One thing I wanted to ask was. As far as for security, SROs, we have the most probably in any of a lot of cities and towns. When you have an officer or private security in every location. Is it more, would you consider being more safe if you had someone there on a daily basis? I know it's hard to say, but like sometimes I know between staff and costs, we have 4 more than any of us, but any cities and towns. Maybe we could look at not paying the wage that we normally pay, but have possibly retired police officers. Just
In addition to or in lieu of?
in addition. I was just, because I'll talk about it at the end of the meeting. We will be putting together a committee consisting of the school committee, fire, police and everything. And that's something I've already talked to some of my colleagues about, is where we do have retired ones. And it's not so much as just have someone there to build rapport with the students, to see them every day. And I know, like I said, cost wise is a factor as well as regular staffing. That's why I was always thinking about retired ones.
Right, no, it's definitely an option, to be considered.
We can talk more about it. I'm just throwing that out there.
The training would be a piece of that too.
For example, like, Harold, you just retired. If, depending on what the cost would be, you have someone who's already been trained, who's already knows the students, who's always familiar with the school system. I'm just using her as an example.
Yeah.
And something like that.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting proposition for sure.
Okay. And obviously, Anthony, everybody's used to doing more with less, right? Doing more with more is better, right? To answer your question up front, having more is better. Now, caveat, it's gotta be the right people, right?
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
yeah, visibility, having people that are out interacting, creating a safe environment, so that you're not only deterring something that may go wrong, but also, the students here will feel welcome to approach and have a conversation with, and that's exactly what you want to strive for. So more with more, to answer your simple question up front, that's.
It's not trying to take away from anybody,
Right.
it's just that, kind of more safety.
I'm gonna just mention the time, because we're at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
If we want slides to go.
I have a question though before we move
Yes.
this way. While the fire department's here, one of my concerns has always been the connecting doors. In the way our schools are built, if you get into one room, say a teacher inadvertently, honest mistake, just didn't lock their door. Now, with the passing doors, the connecting doors, you could potentially get into 6 classrooms, say in a long corridor. I was told, and not by a fire person directly, but I was told that we can't lock those doors because it's a fire issue. But to me, that's a big security issue because you're allowing access to that whole corridor because those doors aren't locked. And none of those doors are locked as far as I know. Some of them are almost petitions even more than, what walls. But none of those doors are locked, and I didn't know if that was a fire code or not a fire code, but that's an issue. If you went to say the Whale, and I think it's 6 rooms in a row,
So one thing to be careful of is giving too much detail about,
yeah. Well, it's here, that's why I didn't think it was.
Get the school, we mentioned school. I was really an example.
but I will say, John, just to generally answer your question, we work with the police and the fire. Lieutenant O'Leary does inspections of our buildings 4 times a year. They identify anything that is a violation of fire code and we address it immediately. So
I didn't mean we weren't, I didn't say we weren't following the fire code. I'm wondering, can we lock those doors? That's my question. Could those doors
well,
potentially be
but
locked?
my answer to your question is we need fire code.
I think that answers the question. Is it a fire code that we can't lock the doors? That's my question.
We can't answer that.
No, I didn't, I'm asking the fire.
What we
department.
can say though is that what you do with your classroom doors in the flip lock, when it's shut to lock, it's locking to prevent access into the classroom.
Right.
Right.
So you are fine with fire code to get out. There's
Correct.
No, that's not my concern. Teacher, honest mistake, teacher doesn't lock or close their door securely. That door is now open. That whole hallway is potentially a hazard. Because someone could, by entering that empty classroom with the doors not secured, honest mistake, it happens. That whole corridor is a problem. But so I was told by someone that no, we can't lock the past doors. It's a fire issue, and that's what I'm trying to, that's a.
Well, the intention is always to have multiple forms of egress from any particular room at any time, because depending on what the
I
scenario is,
understand, I just,
if all of the doors are locked, now you've got 3 ways that people can't get out instead of,
I understand.
so. But we do work with the fire department in order to establish those
Okay.
protocols and make sure that we are meeting fire code when we do establish those protocols. And so those doors are intentionally not locked between rooms because they're secondary forms of egress.
So just the last, on this slide here, just to wrap up, one of the things that we noted was that, classroom doors, the main classroom doors, are not always kept closed and locked while classes are on the go. So it's just another observation that we found. It's pretty ready. If there's no more questions for this slide, we do. Site and building design layout, this is, we can just real quickly just note here that, so the buildings, as we had talked about before, the way that they sit and where they're, and how they are designed, there are the presentation of some areas that can't be easily seen. Hideable areas, concealable areas. We also noted that ground floor windows, a typical design approach, protective design approach for schools today, and mind you, these buildings already exist, is that ground floor windows are designed in such a way to preclude one from being able to look into the classroom from the outside, while still being able to see out of the classroom to the outside. Either way. We've seen some of your buildings here in the city have that type of design. It's like it's smoke, the outside, so you can't see in, but you are still able to see out. What that provides is the ability for your teachers and even students to participate in continuous observation of your exterior. And then it limits anybody else who wishes to do something nefarious from seeing where perhaps the most targets might be located, if you will, most souls. Another thing that we found here is that, again, noting that when these schools were designed, there's no ballistic performance design in any of your schools. If there were to be any, it would primarily be at your main entry point. It would be a vestibule type design. And then we also found that there's no forced entry mitigation of any, at least your ground floor windows or glass doors. Meaning like a film or a high wind design type of window, in so much as to slow down and mitigate the ability for someone to get into your classroom to break in or break into your school, if you will, to smash in. And then we did notice too that some of the foliage, the landscaping, was thick in some areas, and some schools that had physical property boundaries, like a chain link fence. Those fences perhaps can be looked at for some upkeep and maintenance as well too. Any questions? I'm sorry, I missed the last one. It was also pretty key, the lights.
Yeah.
We did do a light survey. So what that entailed was us going around, we came after hours with a light meter and went to all the buildings and went around all the buildings and through the parking lots and gauged light. What we found is, the first thing we found is that a number of lights were out. We also found different light types, LED, which is very bright white. And then we found non-LED, which is like yellowish. So the function of the light, with respect to safety and security was not always consistent. And where it wasn't consistent, particularly was where there was light that existed, the illumination level did not necessarily coincide with safety and security illumination level practices. We spoke about how the school does have training and exercise, they do drills, the enhanced drills, they do training at the start of the year. A number of personnel are trained in the CPR and adult first aid. Well, first aid, I should say. They meet the minimum, they exceed minimum training requirements, and so much as that they carry out the fire drills that they need to each year. They follow the enhanced drills that they have in place. And they also do beginning of year awareness courses and other ad hoc courses as they come up with respect to threat environment, active threat, and evacuation. When it comes to communication and collaboration, a couple of key things that we found here. One is that you have a RPS as an IP phone system, which allows for a number of different attributes, including being able to communicate emergency issues. RPS also has a two-way radio system that they use, which has a dedicated emergency channel that all schools have access to, all radio users have access to, which reads to multiple locations, including Revere PD, area dispatch, the superintendent's office and others as well too, and amongst the schools themselves. So when and if there is something that's transmitted a level of emergency that it goes over channel 16, everyone's going to hear about it and know about it. And we also have seen and understand and learned that Revere is extremely quick to respond. If they're not already there, they're there within 60 to 90 seconds. So it's a very great response time and a very good communication. We can go on unless there's any questions.
I think this might be the last, is it?
This is next.
Oh, yeah, next up, sorry.
This is the last one.
Okay.
All, what this slide is presenting is an idea for consideration by RPS for an implementation roadmap or plan. Which you spoke to before, you talked about a couple of times already, Diane, and so much as putting a team together, looking to see how we're gonna do things, looking to see what we need, begin to adjust with respect to timelines and goals and action teams, monitoring, communicating it. One thing we would offer here is that we have a vested community who's extremely interested in what you are doing or not doing. I say you, we mean RPS. Obviously, when you communicate, when any communication is occurring, use as many different type of communications, consider using as many communication strategies as you can, which particularly include the community, parents, teachers. And with that, I don't think that we have anything else.
Any questions with the committee? Anything with public comment? Anyone have any questions? First of all, thank you for this presentation. We'll be going into an executive session to talk about any questions on the individual schools. But in closing, as far as the public goes, we will be forming a new committee consisting of school committee, fire, police department, as well as staff to go forward as far as with some of the recommendations. Hopefully everybody's feeling good. With that, can I make a motion to go into the executive session? Second? All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you.